This is not only a spoiler warning for both Super and Kick-Ass, but it's also a content warning because I bring up rape 3 times, so you have been warned. Alright, so my camera was short-lived, and instead of going back to my laptop, I've decided to just do a cameraless video. So, welcome back to another Versus Review. Versus Review! Where we take 2 movies of the same or similar concept and we decide which one does it better. If you were to tell me to recommend you an R-rated 2010 black comedy film about a pathetic loser who thinks, what if I became a superhero for real? Well, you've narrowed it down to 2 films. Matthew Vaughn's Kick-Ass and James Gunn's Super. So as always, let's start with the movie that came out first. Meet our protagonist Dave, a high school loser that is impressively uninteresting, and his life is the definition of boring. I mean, just like every high school loser, his hobbies are reading comics, jerking off, and being non-existent to his crush, Katie. I mean, well, maybe not every high schooler has a crush named Katie. That's specific to Dave. And yeah, I mean, like, his life is just that of a high school student. It's uninteresting. There's nothing going on, you know? His mom dies, and he's like, well, life goes on. And being a comic book nerd, it's no wonder that he gets the idea.
How come nobody's ever tried to be a superhero?
Then we meet our bad guys.
What's more likely, huh? That you're a greedy little cocksucker, or all my coke was stolen by Superman. Batman. I never said Batman! Enough!
This guy is our antagonist. He's a typical mob boss and has a son that's also a high school loser comic book geek. So anyway, Dave, our protagonist, suits up and becomes the easily stoppable, stompable, stabbable sensation, Kick-Ass. He spends the next couple of weeks rigorously training for his first fight. And with a baton in hand, he's easily stopped, stomped, and stabbed. But this incident leads him to being filled with metal and having a heightened pain resistance. So, you know, somewhat of a superpower. And when he initially gets his ass kicked, he doesn't want anybody to know about the suit, so he begs the paramedic not to tell anybody. This leads to the police report saying that he was naked at the crime scene, implying that he was potentially raped. And because of this, there's a rumor going around that he's gay? Fellas, is it gay to be raped? Basically, the writers needed a reason for his crush to talk to him, and that reason is thinking that he's gay because he was allegedly raped. Anyway, he gets right back out there, and this time he actually holds up pretty well. And when he's kicking ass with his 2 batons, people start filming it, and he goes viral. And in the meantime, his personal life, he goes along with being gay. He actively lies to Katie in order to get close to her. And that's fucking creepy. That's weird. During one of these gay best friend hangouts, she mentions that she needs Kick-Ass's help to beat up a guy. You know, not knowing that he's Kick-Ass. And he's all like, yeah, just go ahead and email him, you know. Maybe he'll respond. I mean, I wouldn't hold your breath or anything. So Kick-Ass goes to beat up said guy where he's easily stopped, stomped, but before he's stabbed, a hero comes to the rescue. That's right, an 11-year-old girl slaughters everybody in that room, and her and Dave make their escape where she's reunited with Bid Gaddy. And he does look like Batman, actually. He looks a lot like Batman. But Dave can't jump that well, so they kind of leave him behind. He goes home and he's basically like, oh, I can't be a superhero because there's already superheroes that are way better than me. And honestly, that's relatable. Envy can be quite discouraging at times. But they show up to his house and they're like, welcome aboard. Welcome to the Hero Squad, newbie. If you need us, put that you're on vacation on your website. So I think it's important that I backtrack here and say that the name of the antagonist is D'Amico. So we learn that Big Daddy's been fucking up D'Amico's crime business, which leads D'Amico to think it's Kick-Ass since Kick-Ass is the hero going viral. That's when his comic book loser high school son comes up with a plan. Meet Red Mist. He turns in one of his dad's accomplices for like a media stunt, and he becomes the new superhero on the block. That's when he teams up with Kick-Ass in order to, you know, lure him into a trap. But at said location where there's supposed to be a trap, they get there and there's this fire. So Red Mist runs inside, grabs a teddy bear, then he shows that teddy bear to his dad because it's actually a camera. It's like a nanny cam. And on the footage is Big Daddy fucking shit up. Dave comes clean to Katie about being Kick-Ass. But more importantly, he comes clean to Katie about being straight. And not only does she immediately forgive him, but they get horny real quick. And this is the point where I want to address Katie real quick, because I feel like her entire character can be cut from this film without changing much. The counter argument to that being that Dave now has something to lose, and that's a fair argument, but you know, Katie isn't really a character. She's just like a lazy writer's tool to give Dave something that he can lose. It just sucks. I think it just sucks, and I don't like it. You don't need her to raise the stakes. I mean, Dave has friends you could have explored. Dave has a dad you could have explored. Dave could value his life, maybe. I just feel like there's no good argument for this two-dimensional girl that exists to fuck Dave, you know? Because again, he was lying to her this whole time, and then she was all like, oh, you're not gay? Well, guess that means we can fuck. I'm gonna move on from it. So Red Mist tells Kick-Ass to meet up with him. It's an emergency. They meet up and he's all like, man, people are coming after me. People are fucking up my shit, bro. People are looking for me. We need to find the other heroes. You said there were other heroes out here? Well, we need them to help. So then Kick-Ass goes to his laptop and puts on Vacation on his website. And honestly, look at this.
Thanks. Oh, Kick-Ass?
That is so extra. Like, they didn't need to do all that. Kick-Ass and Red Mist go to Big Daddy and Hit Girl's HQ, where Red Mist ambushes them. He shoots Hit Girl and kidnaps Big Daddy and pause. I find two things hard to believe here. The first thing is that Big Daddy would go down that easily. I mean, Hit Girl was in a very vulnerable position from the get-go because she was sitting on a fucking window for some reason. But like, we just saw Big Daddy take down an entire warehouse of thugs. So like a handful of thugs enter the room and he falls, you know, he's like, I don't know. It just seems silly. But secondly, I find it even harder to believe that Big Daddy and Hit Girl wouldn't have previously investigated Red Mist. I mean, they were on Kick-Ass pretty quick just because he went viral. They found his current location, his secret identity, and where he lives without breaking a sweat. Now, Red Mist, he comes out of the blue and turns in some big crime boss, and they don't pay him any mind. I mean, the best I can say, like the best counter argument I can give is that they were too busy going after D'Amico, but I don't know. This is probably the weakest link in the entire movie. Anyway, Kick-Ass and Big Daddy are live streamed being beaten to shit, but Hit Girl once again comes to the rescue. However, not in time for Big Daddy not to be Darth Vadered. He fucking dies. Dave and Hit Girl take the fight to D'Amico.
Who let him in? It's a little kid. What's the matter with you?
Has nobody told this guy that a little girl is what fucked up the execution? Is this not suspicious at all to bro here? Hit Girl breaks in, kicks ass until she's out of ammo, and then finally Dave returns the favor by saving her while wearing a Gatling gun jetpack. Then they have a double showdown. Hit Girl fights D'Amico while Kick-Ass goes and fights Red Mist. It eventually ends with Kick-Ass blowing up D'Amico with the bazooka and then flying off into the sunset with Hit Girl leaving Red Mist to become super pissed. There's a resolution, blah blah blah, the end. And aside from a couple plot holes and the most atrocious romance subplot in the existence of film, this movie is phenomenal. I actually love this movie. It's one of my all-time favorites. And I know I nitpicked a lot here, but like, it does so much right. And I give it the highest number I can give it. I give it a 10 out of 10. Now let's move on to the next movie. Meet our protagonist, Frank. The first thing we learn about Frank is that his life is also impressively uninteresting, and the highlights can be summed up by two perfect moments: the day he married Sarah, and the day he pointed a police officer in the direction of a criminal. We also learn that the rest of his life is the saddest shit in the world. Like, he is the most depressing individual that has ever graced cinema. And before the opening credits, we get a fuck ton of information very rapidly but effectively. We learn Frank fantasizes about saving his relapsing druggy wife in a violent manner. We learn that his wife doesn't really love him. We learn that he's good at cooking eggs, but more importantly that this guy Jacques is looking for his wife. And then a few days after that encounter, his wife disappears. Willingly. And we also learned that he can't really stand up for himself. He's kind of a pushover. So Frank, like a rational person, tries to kidnap his wife back but he ends up getting his ass kicked. This eventually leads to him getting a vision, as he describes it. But it kind of just seems like he's having a psychotic break, and he hallucinates, or God basically hinting at him to become a superhero. So he goes to a comic book shop to look for signs where he meets a fellow crazy person, Libby, who asked the question,
I mean, I wonder all the time why no one's ever just stood up and become a real superhero.
and that's when Frank becomes the Crimson Bolt. So he tackles a pot dealer, but he loses the fight. So then he comes back with a wrench, and this becomes his thing. He just attacks criminals with a fucking wrench. He also hit 2 people with a wrench for cutting in line. It's awesome. It is so cool. So the comic shop employee, Libby, figures out that it's him and invites him to a party because she thinks it's fucking sweet. She thinks, holy shit, somebody became a superhero. It's so cool that there's somebody hitting people in the head with a wrench because they cut in line. She's all about it. So she invites him to a party, but he's trying not to give away his identity, so he just denies that it was him. He then continues his crusade in trying to kidnap his wife. He starts by breaking the window of Jacques' big house, but then fleeing once he realizes they all have guns. But not before being shot in the leg. At the same time, the criminals recognize that it's him, so he can't go home. So what does he do? He crashes Libby's party, where she allows him to stay and offers her services as his sidekick. She trains with him, but she gets bored. So she suggests that they attack this guy that allegedly keyed her friend's car. Except, she doesn't mention the alleged part. Then she almost kills the guy. So then Frank tries to drop her as his sidekick. He's all like, no, 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 no. No, 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 no. You can't do that. But then the goons find him, almost kill him, and she saves his ass. So she earned her spot back on the team. They decide to gear up, so they get guns. Frank learns how to make pipe bombs, and Libby gets Wolverine claws. Then shortly after this scene, Libby just straight up rapes Frank. And I don't really have much to say about it, but it would be weird to just gloss over it. After that, the duo attack the mansion, or the big house, or whatever the fuck it is. But it goes wrong, and Libby dies. That causes Frank to go on an absolute rampage, and he just kills everybody. He just kills everybody, and it's cool. And when he gets to Jacques, they share this exchange.
What are you gonna do? Are you gonna execute me for my sins? Don't think you're better than me, you fucking psycho! You fucking almost kill people for butting in the line! You don't butt in line! You don't sell drugs! You don't molest little children! You don't profit on the misery of others! The rules were set a long time ago! They don't change!
Now, Frank doesn't really get much of a happy ending. He successfully kidnaps his wife, but by this point, he's actually saving her because she herself was almost raped, and she was also being drugged to shit. And after Frank saves her, she actually goes on to live a productive life. You know, Frank actually did save Sarah, but he didn't get the girl. She goes on to marry another guy, and their kids call him Uncle Frank, but he's happy with that. And I think it's a very fitting way to have a happy ending without really having a happy ending. You know, it's a good compromise, because you can't give Frank a happy ending. And initially, when I first watched this movie, I gave it a 9 out of 10. But on rewatch, I think it's going right up there with Kick-Ass as another 10 out of 10. But for what it's worth, I still like Kick-Ass more, but they're at the same tier. So, they're both 10 out of 10 movies. But now it's time to decide which one does it better. Which of these black comedy 2010 R-rated films about guys who were all like, what if we were superheroes, is better as that concept? Not necessarily the better movie, but I mean, you get what I'm fucking saying. Super! So I give it to Super for 2 big reasons and 1 small reason. And we'll begin with the latter. The small reason is the R rating. Now, I'm not saying Kick-Ass doesn't utilize its R rating to highlight the concept or provide some bloody fun antics, but the R rating is a fundamental part of Super. You could make Kick-Ass without the R rating. It would be a much worse movie, I'm not gonna argue that, but you could do it. But Super's blood and gore, however, is an essential part of the movie's identity. But let's get to the bigger fish. The big reason, number 1, why I think Kick-Ass does the concept less justice is the very existence of Bid Gaddy and Hit Girl. Because as Dave says,
Hit Girl and Bid Gaddy, they were the real deal.
these two are actual superheroes, which kinda goes against the spirit of what if real life people were superheroes. And again, I love the characters, and their inclusion make it a better movie, but it further adds a layer of unbelievability. Not to mention the fucking jetpack, Gatling gun, and bazooka. I mean, those definitely don't help. Mostly, Big Daddy and Hit Girl, they're just superheroes. And while that reason alone is enough for me to give the win to Super, I'm gonna take it a step further and justify why Super does the concept better justice. And I'm going to do that by comparing the two protagonists. Yes, both protagonists' lives lack purpose or excitement, but Dave is a high school student. He has a lifetime ahead of him, plenty of opportunities, plenty of possibilities. Frank, on the other hand, is in his 40s and his wife just left him, and he doesn't have a future to lose. Not to mention the life he led leading up to being a depressing 40-year-old was also depressing. As he puts it,
Other people have goodness. They have good things. They have love and tenderness. People who care about their lives. They're not humiliated at every turn. But why was I so unlucky to have my soul born into this disgusting me? This ugly face. This hair that doesn't comb. And this dumb, idiotic personality. Other people stare at me, God. I can tell. They're amazed at how something so stupid and idiotic can even exist.
now if you call Dave a pathetic loser, I wouldn't argue with you. But Frank takes that to a whole nother level. His entire life, he's been just this fucking weak, pathetic loser, you know? He doesn't have any real friends, they all just use him, and he lets it happen. Dave, on the other hand, has friends. Dave has actual friends. Even if they're kind of assholes, they're still like his genuine friends. And Dave has a loving dad. But Frank's life lacks a person that gives half a shit about him, and it's sad. It really is. And so he takes the cake for pathetic loser. And lastly, unlike Dave, Frank is an actual lunatic. He's plagued with hallucinations, and he fantasizes about violence. He's insane. So it's a lot more believable that this man dresses up like a superhero and attacks people with a blunt object than it is for Dave to do so. The way I see it, Kick-Ass is sort of this unconventional superhero movie, but it's a superhero movie nonetheless. But Super is a movie about a mentally unstable, pathetic loser that thinks, what if I became a superhero for real? And that does it for this Versus review. Catch you later!